Good evening from Micro Live. Later in the programme, I'll be trying out some software that lets you create your own newspaper.
And we take a look at Sinclair's new micro, the 128K Spectrum.
And American reporter Freff meets Ray Kurzweil, artificial intelligence guru and inventor of this amazing musical instrument. Gotcha! But first, I'm having a go at this game. It's called Who Dares Wins 2. It's not really my style of game, but I could actually get to like this. I'm having an amazing success. I'm walking across the water. Look at this, walking straight up, oblivious to the bullets. Success could actually go to my head, I think. No, I haven't just developed a natural new talent for this sort of game. I have to own up, I'm cheating. I'm using a device that's to be launched next Monday. It's called Game Killer, and it's a cartridge that simply plugs into the back of the Commodore 64. It costs £14.95, and basically it stops you getting killed. Now, it works like this. Off he goes. These objects on the screen, you can see some of them there, the men, the bullets and the bombs, are called sprites. And in the Commodore 64, they can be moved around the screen by some special hardware. Now, normally, every time two sprites collide, it registers in a particular part of the computer's memory. But with Game Killer on, it stops it from registering. And that's why my little man seems to be completely oblivious to the hail of bullets. Oopsie-daisy. There we go. But in fact, it's not quite as simple as that. As you saw there, I did actually get blown up by an explosion. You see, some of the sprite collisions may be detected by the software, and then Game Killer won't work. Now, in fact, in this game, my bullets collisions, let's get it back up again, there we are. My bullets collisions are detected by the software, so I can still attack, which is great. But alas, as you saw, the explosions are too, so I can still get zapped by a bomb. So, which games can you use this on? Well, the manufacturers Robtech claim that it will work on virtually any game that uses sprite graphics. But we found that all these games here, that's including some favourites like Ghostbusters and Jet Set Willy, are either completely unaffected by it or they even crash. Now, when it does work, it means that you can get through to levels of your game that have always beaten you before. You may even discover that some of the promised levels don't exist because the programmer thought nobody would ever reach them.
Next week, how to cheat at patience. And now here's our American reporter, Freff, with a profile of a man who's leading the world in applying artificial intelligence to commercial products.
Raymond Kurzweil is a 38-year-old inventor who lives in a dream world. In his universe, there are machines that can read books to the blind, typewriters that work when you talk to them, and pianos that quite naturally turn into choirs.
Ray's about the greatest guy to work for I can imagine. He's extremely bright, and he's attracted bright people to his team here.
I listened to him, and after about 15 minutes, the only thought I had for the rest of the 2 hours that he talked was, how can I get to work for this guy? What do I have to do to join his company? He's a combination of the things that you run across very rarely in one person in this business. He's a good businessman, a visionary, a leader, and a technologist.
Kurzweil's office wall reflects both his achievements and his taste for publicity. The man himself seems very ordinary, although he's clearly impressed at least some of the right people. His passion for science is obvious, and he owns an impressive collection of famous scientific autographs. His interest in artificial intelligence, though, started when he was still in high school.
Well, I got interested in the area of pattern recognition. In high school, I did this project using computers to try to figure out what differentiates a melody we find satisfying and from a random sequence of notes. And I wrote a program that if you fed it a melody, it would create a computer model of the patterns that it found in that melody, and then would generate original melodic sequences of notes from that model. They were similar to the compositions that it analyzed. If you fed it Chopin, it would then write more Chopin melodies. If you fed it Mozart, it would write more Mozart melodies. And if you fed it Mozart, it would then sound similar. It had everything that Mozart melodies had, except the genius of Mozart. It sounded like a third-rate student of his. That was actually my first experience with what's called pattern recognition.
And Kurzweil's success has been in applying pattern recognition to solve some difficult problems.
Thank you also for the hospitality you shared.
The Kurzweil reading machine was his first product. It's been installed mainly in libraries all over the world, for the first time giving blind people access to ordinary print. The reading machines need to be able to cope with any font or typeface, a classic artificial intelligence problem.
I think one key aspect of artificial intelligence is that it's a computer system that's interacting with the real world as opposed to some very predictable input. The reading machine for the blind is dealing with printed material that's not predictable. It'll read something that the designers of the system never even saw, and it's subject to a broad variety of real-world problems, such as ink being sprayed over the page in unpredictable ways, letters being smashed and fragmented, touching each other. One common problem, for example, in character recognition is a small E can have the loop broken and it might look like a small C. If it's in fact an E, you need to essentially mentally reconstruct the loop to add ink, even though it's not actually there on the page. And in fact, the way we approach the problem is to try to determine, well, how is it that a person knows that's really an E and not a C? And one answer very often is context. A C doesn't make sense there because there's no word that makes sense if that's a C, whereas it makes perfect sense if it's an E. In fact, the character recognition system uses context. It has a complete dictionary of all of English, and it knows which letter sequences make sense and which letter sequences don't.
A more sophisticated version of the reader is the Kurzweil data entry machine, or KDEM. One of its main uses in America is in the printing industry for direct entry of typewritten copy. To ensure that data is entered accurately, the KDEM has a human operator while it learns the font. As the document is scanned, any letters the KDEM is unsure of are highlighted. It displays an enlargement of what it sees on the screen with its guess alongside. In this case, an F and an R are touching, and the machine has interpreted it as a capital G. The operator simply types the correct letters. And after 2 or 3 pages, the KDEM has learned the font and works quickly and accurately. Kurzweil Computer Products Incorporated, the company that makes both the reader and the data entry machine, was sold to the Xerox Corporation in 1980.
Why did you decide to work on a musical instrument?
Well, I have an interest in music that goes back really since my childhood. My father was a noted musician. He was conductor of the Bell Symphony and the Queen's Concert Orchestra. So I come from a musical family. I've had a long-term interest in computers, so it's kind of a natural association. I had a relationship with Stevie Wonder from the Reading Machine project because he was one of the first users of the Reading Machine. He's quite an avid fan of electronics and computers, and we had some discussions on what the ideal musical instrument would be, and the Kurzweil 250 is an attempt to create an instrument that follows the definition from Stevie Wonder of what such an ideal instrument would be like.
To digitally store all the possible sounds of a piano would require thousands of memory chips. Kurzweil's trick was to find the patterns of similarity in the sounds of different notes played at different volumes, and then store only those similarities in memory. They represent the essence of a piano.
Using the same techniques of pattern recognition applied to computer modeling of a complex instrument, we can recreate any instrument. Here's an entire string section of an orchestra. We can split the keyboard. Here's a split between the piano and an acoustic bass, so we can play both instruments simultaneously. Here's a split between many different drum sounds.
Kurzweil's latest dream is to build a voice-activated word processor with a 10,000-word vocabulary. The first problem was to develop the hardware.
A key issue is being able to do the amount of computation required. There were analyses done when we began this project, which essentially proved that it was impossible because it would take too much computation. These analyses went through an analysis of how much computer power you would need to recognize a 10,000-word vocabulary, and came up with the answer you'd need 3,000 or 4,000 computers. And then went on to say, well, computers are getting faster each year. Maybe it won't be that long before computers are 4,000 times faster than they are today. But they're only doubling in speed every couple of years or so. So in fact, it'd be well into the next century before they multiplied by 4,000. So therefore, we're going to have to wait till the next century. Well, a whole other approach is, in fact, not to do one computation at a time, but in fact to do thousands of computations simultaneously. With custom integrated circuits, it's now possible to do that at relatively low cost. We have chips that we've developed ourselves that can actually do 8 or 10 things simultaneously and do them faster than general purpose computers because they're not programmable. They can just do their operation in a dedicated way at a faster speed than a computer. So you're talking about, for several $100s worth of silicon, being able to do computation at 4,000 or 5,000 times the speed of a conventional computer.
And all that processing power is needed to find patterns in the jumble of information that is speech. These are computer representations of the same word, as said twice by the same person.
Barricade.
Now for the second one.
Barricade.
In the bottom display, you can see that the B portion of the word barricade is considerably longer than the B portion on the upper plot. This also holds for the vowel portion and the other parts of this word. The programs which do the speech recognition must not be fooled by that. We have to construct the programs so that they understand what is important difference and what is unimportant variability. That is a very difficult task.
We have 7 what we call expert systems, each of which is actually trying to determine what is the word that the person has said or is going to say, and it uses somewhat different techniques. One technique is language analysis. Based on what you've already said, what is this person likely to say next? As a person speaks, it actually parses the sentence, figures out what each word is doing in the sentence. It builds up these sort of tree-like structures that you learn in grammar school. Our system is able to actually predict which words make sense and which words don't make sense as the next word in the sentence. So before you even say the next word, it's already largely eliminated the bulk of the vocabulary as being nonsensical at that point. But they all use somewhat different techniques, and they each have different strengths and weaknesses. And then there's a master program called the Expert Manager, which has knowledge about the strengths and weaknesses of the different systems, and is able to combine the input of all these different 7 experts to come up with a final answer.
So how close are they to a working system?
Anybody who expects to be able to buy a product from us the day after tomorrow that will allow them to say anything they want as fast as they want and they never have to train it is going to be mildly disappointed. Because when our products first come out, you have to spend some time, not too much, but some time, training them to your voice, to how you sound. You have to, at first, pause briefly between each word you say, like this, rather than say a stream of words all run together the way we normally talk.
We have had a prototype working of a 10,000-word system for about 6 months. It's been running at 97% accuracy. In fact, in the 3% of the words where it doesn't get the correct choice, the alternate word, which it also displays on the screen, is almost always the correct word. So the vast majority of errors are corrected simply by hitting one error key.
The only